Imagine pulling up into a free campsite, setting up your little home on wheels, and thinking you're about to have a peaceful night in nature. Instead, you get harassed for hours by a local cast of men in pickup trucks. I'm talking yelled at, called names, your dog was almost hit, they drive through the campsite, almost hit your van, and even having your property stolen in broad daylight by someone in a government vehicle. Just imagine it for a minute. Crazy, right? No, it's never gonna happen. Well, it happened to me in Butte, Montana, which we are forevermore going to be referring to as Butt. I need to talk about it because the way solo vanlifers, women in particular, but that's another video that you can see here, are treated out here on the road is not only unfair, but it's dangerous. I'm Bunny. I've been traveling full-time as a nomad for 12 years now. I've parked in deserts, forests, beaches, and everywhere in between. Definitely dealt with my share of jerks out here. Locals spinning donuts right in my campsite, fireworks going off at 2 a.m., and gunshots in the distance. None of that is new to me. Here's the thing, when I share this, there's always someone, usually men, in the comments. And they always say, well, that never happens to me. I've camped all over and no one's ever bothered me. And that's kind of exactly my point, because solo travelers, especially women traveling alone, get treated differently. We're targeted in ways that men simply aren't. Are you a solo female traveler? Have you experienced this kind of treatment? Then like and subscribe, because I've got an entire playlist and a whole bunch more to say about this. But let's get into the story. Let's walk through exactly what happened in Butte, Montana. Now, this was at a free campsite, and I want to talk about it because it's not just about one rude person. It's about a whole pattern of behavior that shows how unsafe and unwelcoming public land can feel for people traveling solo. So I had just gotten settled in the campsite when I noticed a white Tacoma pickup truck in another pull-off on the other side of the road. He was just sitting there watching me, and I was watching it through the back of my windows, which you can't see in because they're super tinted. And he had this like disgruntled face on, like, he was like the male version of a Karen. Then suddenly he guns it out of the pull-off and drives through my campsite. Now, my dog was on a leash attached to the van outside, and he almost hit my dog. I got my dog in really quick, and just as he's pulling up really fast, I slammed the door. But he was sitting there trying to look into my van. This is a campsite I've never been at before, but I'm not the only one who's ever camped here. There's all these pictures on iOverlander saying, with all different kinds of vehicles that have parked here before, they've given this place ratings, they've given it reviews. It's a good place to be. And other people have used it for years now. The man was so close in the truck, he could have stepped right into my van. Like, he was right up against the bus door. I didn't have time to record that part, but as soon as I saw him speed off after I slammed the door in his face, I did get his license plate and the truck pulling out of the pull-off. And at that point, I decided it's probably a good idea to put my traffic cones on either side of the pull-off. I put 2 traffic cones at one entrance and 2 at the other, because this was just a pull-through. It wasn't to stop people from going through. It was just to caution them from coming through fast. There was enough space between the 2 cones on each side to drive through. This man coming through my campsite was just the beginning. But remember, I'm used to locals acting a fool, so it didn't really faze me. I'm used to this happening. Usually if you don't fuel it or you don't acknowledge it, they leave you alone. Usually. Next, a red pickup truck comes, and he stops on the road and sing-song says, hello, 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 3 times. Very rudely, shouting at the top of his lungs, out of his vehicle. It wasn't like a excuse me or knock knock. It was nothing pleasant. It was a rude, I'm barging into your space and I don't give a kind of hello. I finally poke my head out the window. He starts mansplaining to me how he knows where there's better camping. Now, I already know where all the free camping is in the area. I've done my research. I've been to all of those places, and unfortunately, I did not have service. This was before I had Starlink. And there were a lot of people at the other campsites, which I have another video about that, because people have been bringing their trailers in, locals, and leaving them there for months at a time so that no one else can camp there, and using it like private storage on public land for their trailers. Back to this guy in the red truck. I poke my head out. He tells me he knows where there's better camping, and all I say to him was, I'm all set, thanks. That's when he calls me a CUNT. He says, Well, you don't have to be rude about it. I'm just trying to help. And then he speeds off, kicking rocks, down the road, yelling obscenities. He lost it. He called me a just because I said, thank you, I'm all set. I don't know how to be more disarming than that, but I'm not gonna say, oh, please tell me all your information, sir. I'm gonna move to that campsite right now. Now, as if that wasn't enough, this red pickup truck circles back over the next few hours, 2 or 3 times, laying on his horn. I'm pretty sure he was trying to be annoying. It was an old red pickup truck, like a Datsun or an old Ford Ranger. The horn was weak, to say the least. So if you can imagine what the sound coming out of this little red pickup truck was as he's speeding past me. That horn sounded like a dying cow. Again, I'm used to the locals acting a fool. These are your typical NIMBYs. They're very territorial, but this isn't their land and I have every right to be there. So it's also funny that they have the time to try and make someone else so miserable who's just trying to get some work done in her van. It's odd to me. And then the Tacoma comes back. Same guy, he parks across the street and stares at my van again. At this point, I'm like, okay, maybe I can be friendly and like break the ice so that he's not threatened by me in any way, which I shouldn't have to do. I don't have to explain myself to anyone. I'm not under any obligation to defend my presence there. Let's just try to be a kind neighbor and let him know I'm not some tweaker with a meth lab. So I stick my head out the window again and I wave. That's when he pulls up along the road, parallel to my van. Now, I'm just trying to diffuse the tension. I've got a big smile on my face. My body's relaxed. I just send him a wave. Then he starts screaming insults to me that I cannot make out. He calls me something about being poor. Sir, I'm richer than you are. I've experienced so much more in life. And to me, that makes me more successful than this old man will ever be. At this point, I'm like, okay, you want to be rude? I'm going to set my boundaries. I say, do not come back into my campsite.
Don't drive through my campsite. Don't do that. You did that yesterday. You almost hit my dog and my van.
I saw you drive through here yesterday. You will not do that again. You almost hit my dog. That was rude. Don't do it. Then he says he's going to call the police. Go call the police. I don't even care. I'm so used to dealing with them at this point, it's like part of van life. It's to be expected at this point, honestly. A few hours go by and no police shows up, and then eventually they do, maybe 4 or 5 hours later. Here we go. And you know what? The officer was so kind. He was not pushy, he was not trying to bully me.
I'm not here to kick you out right now, but you can't stay here too much longer, okay?
Okay.
The reason I'm here, one of the local farmers, I guess, called.
At first, he did try to say some things like, we can escort you out of here. But then he was really understanding that I was just working and I wasn't going to be staying another night anyway. I've had enough of these locals.
The longer you stay here, the more calls we're going to get.
And he said, that's fine. You're free to get your work done. You have a nice day. Well, thank you so much for checking in on me. You too.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye. He even pet the dog. He was happy to see Sparrow. Sparrow was happy to see him. He wished me a good day, and that was that. And I went back to work. I knew that I was okay to be there now because he said it was fine. Whatever stories these locals were spinning about me to the police obviously weren't holding any water. So I get right back to work. I'm just trying to get some things done before I leave for the night because I have another place I can sleep that I know I'm not going to be bothered at. But it gets worse. A white Ford F-Series pickup truck with the decal on the side that says Butte, Silverbow County Community Enrichment pulls up. They back up and almost hit my van doors, which are open in the back. A man gets out, comes up to my driver window and starts banging on my van and saying, you can't park here. Then he starts threatening to tow me within 5 minutes and that he'll wait right there until they come.
We'll wait for him.
So I tell him the cops were just here about an hour ago and I have every right to be here. So what is your problem? You're harassing me now. You're not gonna tow me. You can't tow me. That's illegal. So I'm gonna get back to work now. He refused to leave. And a woman gets out of the truck. I'm in the van trying to get Sparrow situated because he's upset that these people are here and there's drama going on. They walked around my van, they banged on the van. I started calling the police because he said he was going to call the police. I said, let me do that first because I know the officer's name that I just spoke to. We'll get this ball rolling. They're looking around my van like they're looking for something. I don't know what they're looking for, but when I realized they've gone up the road and taken my traffic cones. They've gone to the bottom of the pullout and taken my traffic cones, even though they pulled right between them just fine. He says all these things, roll the tape. They're stealing my property. You're stealing my property. Can I please have my property back? He stole my traffic cones. Yes, this man in a government vehicle blatantly stole my personal property and wouldn't return them. And then he raised his hand like he was going to push me away from him when I asked for them back. At that point, I had called the police. They said they were going to send an officer back out. That never happened. But before I had a chance to go back outside, they were already gone with my traffic cones. So whatever they were talking about, sitting there waiting to get me towed, again, didn't hold any water. Now listen, I'm someone who works on principle. I don't give two shits about those cones. They were dollar store cones. They're not traffic cones. They weren't stolen from some other Parks and Rec department. They were my personal property. When my taxes are paying for a government vehicle to steal from me, we have a problem. So I wasn't about to let that go. The next day, I did some research and I figured out where his office was based on the decals on that truck. Hey guys, look where I am. I found out where their office is. And this is the truck that almost hit my van yesterday. Here we are. Now, before I went, I prepared myself. I wrote a letter of demand, which is basically something that I would put down on his desk and say, I want my traffic cones back. And if you don't, I'm pressing charges. I also had a second document prepared, which was a complaint that I had written up to hand to the police office next if he refused to give my cones back. So when I showed up,
Here you go.
thanks so much.
You're welcome.
He actually gave them back to me. I think he was just so stunned to see me and didn't expect that a woman would come back and stand up for herself and demand her property back. He didn't know what else to do. He froze at that moment. He was kind of like a deer in the headlights. But here's the kicker. By giving them back to me, he admits that he stole them with a government vehicle on government time. So a win is a win, right? But this should never have happened in the first place. I want to pause here because it's easy to hear this and think, wow, that's a crazy story. But this is the reality for solo travelers, especially women. If I had been a man sitting in my van alone at that free campsite in the same place, I honestly don't think any of this would have gone down that way. These men targeted me because I'm a woman alone. They thought they could bully me and scare me and control me. They thought they could run me out of public land that belongs to all of us. And you guys know this isn't an isolated story. There's plenty of you in the comments telling me how many times it's happened to you, how this is why you stopped doing van life, how you have an open case in court right now, pushing against these people harassing you illegally. And I don't mean just a few comments. I mean hundreds of comments saying this happens to me too. This is where I want to hear from you. If you've experienced harassment while camping or boondocking or traveling, please drop your story in the comments. I know there's a lot of you who make comments saying this is all I talk about. It's always negative. The thing is, it's not. I have plenty of content that's beautiful, but YouTube doesn't push it out. But if we build a record of what's happening out here, the only way we can change it is to shine a light on it. And if you want to go deeper with me, I've shared more behind the scenes details and thoughts over on Patreon. That's where I can talk more openly and connect directly with those of you that care about these issues. That's also where you'll find all the footage for everything here.
Well, have fun with that.
I'm literally shaking right now, but I got my cones back. The link is in the description. At the end of the day, I'm not gonna let these people ruin what I love. Public land is so healing for me. and many others. Nomadic life is absolutely beautiful. And solo travelers, including women, have just as much right to be out here as anyone else. So if you found this video important, please give it a like and subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because the more of us who speak up and stand out, the harder it is to silence us.